Hello, listeners. This is Linda from News in Bed. Today we're on the campus of UNLV, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I'm here with Mr. Alan Bao, who's an alumni of UNLV, and I wanted to ask him to see if he has some thoughts on the current situation with Syria, Mr. Putin, and Mr. Obama meeting today. So, Mr. Bao, are you familiar with this situation in Syria?
First of all, I want to thank you for the chance to interview with NIP. And yes, I do have some opinion on Syria situation. So what's your question? Very nice to meet you, Miss Linda.
Yes, the pleasure's mine also. Thank you. Thank you for joining me for this interview.
Thank you.
Well, today was the meeting between President Putin and President Barack Obama. This meeting was at the request of Mr. Putin. Can you tell me, kind of in a sense, what took place there? Did we come out with anything successful from that meeting?
Yeah, actually, Mr. Putin want to have a talk with President Obama because he want to attack and take over the ISIS by Russia along, and in trading of that he will get the sanction dissolved, and also he will get the right to support the Syria government, and that's the reason why Mr. Putin want to have a talk to President Obama.
Okay, so you're saying that President Putin had wanted, or he wants to fight ISIS on his own, and
Yes, ma'am.
to support the current dictatorship?
That's correct.
Okay,
yeah.
so that's Putin's thought? Okay.
Very great idea of him.
Okay. But now, though, President Obama is against that. President Obama wants to take or put a hand into this fight against ISIS?
I'm sorry, I can you repeat that again?
So President Putin wanted to fight this fight on his own, right? Just Russia against ISIS in Syria.
That's correct, yeah.
But now President Obama won't let him fight alone?
Yeah, he will actually, it's not so, President Obama won't let him fight alone, but with a lot of conditions.
And what are some of these conditions?
Some of the conditions is you have to, first of all, he cannot support the Syria dictatorship government, and the second, he had to stop supporting the rebel from the West Ukraine, and the third of all, he had to return Crimea to Ukraine. So it looked like a very difficult condition for Mr. Putin right here.
Okay, so it sounds kind of like President Obama wants to prevent Russia and Syria teaming up, right?
Yeah, you're right, because can I modify this point, because to Mr. Obama and his cabinet, because if Mr. Putin fire along and suppose he beat the ISIS, and then he will control a big part of Middle East, from Syria to Libya, because ISIS control a huge territory in Middle East now. So if Russia along take over the ISIS, and if they beat them, they control Middle East, and then they control the big part of oil in Middle East, and also they what if they don't return? They don't take their troop out of western of Ukraine, and then they don't even give back the Crimea to the Iran people.
Wow, yeah, that does seem to make a lot of sense why maybe the U.S. is putting conditions into any thought of Russia fighting the ISIS fight by itself, because as you pointed out there, it's an opportunity for them to have a large control of the Middle East. To me, it kind of makes sense then, all right?
Yeah, it a lot makes sense. But right now, who control the ISIS now? Nobody control the ISIS. The U.S. and the NATO, they don't have troop people down there to fight against the ISIS face. Only have just a training officer to come there to advise Iraq government and the people of Syria and the people and the Libya government to fight against ISIS. And the other part is the NATO and the U.S. just bombing the ISIS. That to me is very useless because since the ISIS control a lot of big cities in Middle East, include like 3 or 4 countries. Right now, the ISIS also control part of Yemen now. So bombing seems it's not a good method because the ISIS can just go to the hiding in the big city where the civilian living in there. So the bombing from NATO and the U.S. can destroy a lot of their base, their military base, but they're still there. They're still there, and they're still recruiting a lot of people from Western and even in the United States. They're really dangerous. So I hope and in the future the Russia and the U.S. will have a good agreement, so they can put the ground army to take over the ISIS, because as long as we don't do anything, the ISIS will get bigger and bigger and more dangerous to the world.
Well, we've seen in the past years or decades now that even though we have ground troops in these Middle Eastern countries, like in Iraq, Afghanistan, trying to fight the Taliban, the ISIS, we haven't been really successful. And do you think that the Russians will be successful, or do you kind of think we should just send them in there kind of like guinea pigs, have them take the heat for the ground fighting first?
To me, the Russian will be more successful against some really horrible army like ISIS, because the Russian they have first of all they have really powerful army, and they have a different attitude with the army like ISIS. Once the ISIS government threatened, they will take over Russia, and the ISIS, the Russian is to me it's a little different than the United States. We have a lot of love and give when we really care. We have a lot of trust.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I would say the U.S. Army is probably as strong as or even stronger than the Russian Army,
Yes,
right? Our military, our defense,
Yeah.
but it's the morals that the Americans have, the U.S. people, the U.S. military. We have more morals than
Yeah, that's right. The U.S.
Than the
Army
Russians?
have more moral to the Russian. So the Russian it's more
They're
practical.
ruthless? You think
Yeah,
they're ruthless?
Ruthless against army, so again evil. So I think that the
Yeah,
very
but
situation.
it's a dangerous Pandora's box that you're opening there, right? If they,
Why is that? Why is it dangerous?
well, if they're ruthless enough to fight against, a group that we already know can be very evil, can hide themselves into just regular, they're luring children from England, from the United States to join their groups in
You
the
mean
Middle
ISIS?
East.
I'm talking about Russian. Yeah.
Well, no, that's what I'm trying to say here is, ISIS is that evil. And if Russia were really able to get rid of them, do you think they would really get rid of them, or are they going to team up with them for some sort of scheme towards world domination?
No, I think with a really good condition, they really want to get rid of the ISIS, because the ISIS threatened to Russian first, and with some good condition from the United States, like stop sanction on Russia, or even let them support the Syria government. That's, to me, it's reasonable to right now to get rid of the ISIS.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Bao, for your thoughts on this situation. As we can see, it's still a very messy situation, and that may be part of the reason why President Obama won't allow Russia to go it alone and without conditions, because there are so many factors and so many suspicious points that have to be worked out. So thank you again, Mr. Bao, for joining us in this conversation, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you, Ms. Linda, and thank you, NAIP, for having me.
Thank you. And NIB listeners, thank you for joining our conversation today. We'll see you again later.